members of the college, and guests. It is an honor to be able to share a few thoughts with you on this glorious occasion. But before I begin my remarks, I would like to take a moment to recognize those without whom I and the class of 2011 would not be sitting here today. Thank you to our parents and family members for their love and support, and to the Bowdoin faculty, staff, alums, and community members who have all helped shape our college experience. 4 years ago, President Mills did greet us here, the class of 2011, on these steps. And here he declared, "The Bowdoin hello lives." It was my first hour of college, and I was already confused. I wondered if I was going to be forced to greet everyone I crossed on the quad with some sort of special handshake. And I puzzled at how I would ever get to class on time if this was the case. Well, as it turns out, the Bowdoin hello is not a secret handshake. It is a verbal greeting that students, faculty, and staff extend to the people they pass along their journeys through Bowdoin. The catch is that it applies especially to people they do not know. Freshman year, the Bowdoin hello starts as a simple hello, but as time passes, the hello is more often than not followed by the recipient's name. For example, "Hello, Wilson," or "Hello, Professor Alba." And each time that this Bowdoin hello rings from across the quad or echoes through the halls of Hubbard, it testifies to the fact that at Bowdoin, we invest in knowing others and being known in return. Now, had I understood this on the first day of orientation, I would have been anxious for reasons other than having to memorize a handshake. Because as wonderful as it sounds to know and be known, it's actually tremendously laborious and often uncomfortable work. I am a Haitian American evangelical Christian, and I've always been comfortable expressing my racial and cultural identity. In fact, I wrote about them in one of my admissions essays. But for me, the prospect of being known as a Christian on a secular New England campus was absolutely terrifying. When I checked the yes box to attend Bowdoin, I assumed that I would have to check the no box to being a Christ follower. Well, at least in public. I fully expected that for 4 years I'd have to read my Bible in secret and maintain my faith alone. But instead, the Bowdoin hello forced me to engage people and build relationships which ultimately helped deepen my faith. So let me tell you about a particularly poignant time that the Bowdoin hello forced me to be known. One Sunday morning in the late fall of my sophomore year, I was walking across this quad on my way to church. As I took in the foliage, it was sunnier then than it is today, I noticed that my professor was walking his dog in my direction. I knew the Bowdoin hello was imminent, so I mentally fumbled to come up with an explanation for why I was awake and dressed so early on a Sunday morning. We passed each other, said hello, and when the awkward pause came, I could think of no excuse, so I mumbled something about being on my way to church. To my great surprise, instead of running in the opposite direction or solemnly explaining that I would need to find a new advisor, my professor engaged me in a lovely conversation. Turns out he knew the church that I attended because his daughter had done a school project analyzing the church's architecture. That particular exchange was instrumental in assuring me that at Bowdoin was the sort of place where I could bring my faith to life. As I engaged in more Bowdoin hellos and let myself be known, I found that it created unexpected connections between me and others. And the result has been that at Bowdoin, my faith has not only survived, but blossomed. As central as being known as a Christian has been to my Bowdoin experience, I would say the most transformative part of the Bowdoin hello is the way that it has helped me to know and appreciate others. My first year, I made the mistake of bringing way too much stuff to Bowdoin. I'm talking 27 pairs of shoes too much stuff, and more binders and packets of college ruled paper than I could possibly ever use too much stuff. But I wanted to be prepared. It was the end of the first semester, and it had been a long 4 months of my roommates and I being nice to each other, whether we felt like it or not. It was the beginning of our very first set of college exam, and it was 20 degrees outside. In short, it was the perfect storm. I came home one evening to find that my binders that had been collecting dust on our all semester on our bookshelf were stacked atop my already too full desk. Slightly delusional from stress and fatigue, I flew into a rage. My roommates were startled by my outburst and tried to calm me down, but it only made things worse. I was done being nice. The conflict escalated and ended with one of my roommates storming out of our room in tears of fury. I followed suit. The thing is, at a small place like Bowdoin, you can only run from conflict for so long. A few days later, we all found ourselves in a proctor-led mediation session. Again, I wanted to be prepared, so I arrived to the meeting armed with a long list of complaints against my roommates. But that evening, the biblical parable about removing the plank from your own eye before pointing out the speck in another's became all too clear to me. To my great surprise, during our roommate intervention, for every complaint I fired off, my roommates launched 3 back in my direction. They said things like, "Joelinda is never around. We barely know Joelinda, and we're tired of always tripping over her stuff." I thought I was going to show them, but their gripes taught me something invaluable about being part of a community. Upon reflection, I realized that although I had extended polite greetings to my roommates in an effort to be nice, I had not engaged them in the true Bowdoin hello. I had never made time to truly listen to and get to know them. You see, the Bowdoin hello is not simply about being nice. It's about true acknowledgement of one another. Small and intimate spaces like our freshman dorm room and the Bowdoin community, more generally speaking, illustrate all too clearly the fact that if we fail to acknowledge one another, explosions like what my roommates and I call the binder fiasco are bound to exist. I'm happy to report that my second semester of freshman year was much better than the first, in part because I got rid of those dusty binders, but mostly because I made it a point to regularly engage my roommates. In the process, I not only learned a lot about the wonderful people who surround me, but the 4 of us succeeded in bridging the gap between 4 very different and very strong personalities. These 2 anecdotes illustrate 2 lessons that the Bowdoin Hello taught me. The first lesson is this: say hello. Many of us can attest to the fact that when we're late to class and the bitter wind is howling and our minds are filled with thoughts of tests, saying hello is actually the last thing we want to do. In not too long, many of us will find ourselves in cities or new environments with new winds and new tests. But in spite of these obstacles, we must carry with us the tradition of the Bowdoin hello. This hello is not merely a greeting. It is a lifestyle of engagement in our communities and in our world. And it is taken on by individuals willing to make themselves known no matter how scary it might be. The second lesson is this: do not avert your gaze. A glance at all the people on the quad today illustrates the fact that we all come from different states and countries, backgrounds, and cultures. Over the past 4 years, we've been thrown into dorm rooms, classrooms, and onto athletic teams together. At times, it has been tempting to try to ignore our differences, but undoubtedly, our proudest moments have been those times when we have vehemently disagreed, but have not looked away. Instead, we have chosen to understand and maybe even appreciate each other's perspectives. As we depart, let us take this